coming out tonight to support our students we have lined up over there. I know that you all are very proud of them. We are all very proud of them. I hope that they are proud of themselves, or at least that they will be once they're done tonight. They're slightly terrified right now, I'm sure, if you saw our Go Team meeting. But they have worked so hard. I know that many of you might have heard terrible, terrible things about me during their first semester having to do annotated bibliographies. I promise I am a nice person, and I did not torture them by having them do all of that research. It is stuff that they will be using and that they will show off tonight. They have that knowledge. They are experts in their fields. And then second semester, they have been working so hard on their own experiments, their own studies, the statistical analyses. You'll see tonight, they nailed it. They've done a great job. My disclaimer at the beginning, I am a crier, and I have warned them that I will cry. I know that they're your babies, but they're my babies too, and so I will be over there just silly cheesing at them, and I will definitely cry at the end, so my apologies in advance for that. So let me walk you through how the night is going to go. Each student will come up, they will give their presentation. We will go down the line of judges asking a question, just one question per judge. And please hold your applause until after they have answered all the judges' questions. Okay, so I know you'll want to cheer for them as soon as they're done, but let them finish the questions and then cheer for them all you want, embarrass them, it's fine. Please, as far as some housekeeping stuff goes, please make sure your phone is on silent. Everybody's phone, students, your phones are on silent, everybody's phone on silent. Okay, good. Yes. We will take a break in the middle, so when we take that break, 5-minute break. If you need to use the restroom, there are some right over here and some right around the corner over there. And, judges, obviously, we have, still the snacks over there for you guys. If you have to leave at any point aside from the break, we ask that you please do that in between presentations, if at all possible. And when you come back, please also wait until in between presentations. So you will hear applause, it will be obvious when a presentation is ended. If you could please come back in then. We are recording this, and it will be posted on our GovSchool YouTube later on once I edit out all the beginning stuff. But if you want to record your presenter, by all means, just please don't block the view of anybody else. But if you need to record, that's okay. Go ahead and record. And then, with no further ado, let me introduce my judges. Tonight we have, I'll start on this end, we have Miss Candace Owens. She is 11th grade English teacher at Magna Vista and a fellow guinea pig enthusiast. That was all I heard about last year. Did you talk to Miss Owens about her guinea pigs? And then we have Miss Yvonne Gibbons, who is having to live a little vicariously, I believe, because I taught her son Clark in the year that would have been 2020 presentations, and after all of that work, it got canceled. So at least you get to see what it would have been like. But Yvonne is the chairperson for the Martinsville City Public School Board and is on our governing board here for GovSchool. Then we have Mr. Brian Lane, who is also AP English 11 teacher at Martinsville and a dual enrollment instructor for us here. So go English teacher night. And then we have Chloe Mayhew beside him, coordinator of dual enrollment here at PNHCC. And she is in charge of all the paperwork and the technicalities that goes on with getting these kids to that graduation finish line. And then lastly, we have Terry Young. He is the Dean of Academic Success and College Transfer here, and history, right? So it's close enough to English. We're calling it an English teacher night because they tend to go together. Okay, judges, do you have any questions? Good to go? All right, then first up, we are going to have Ethan. If you would come join us, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ethan Duke, and I did my presentation on the effect of sound on African violence. I am a senior from Bassett High School, and after graduation, I plan to attend the University of Virginia, where I will be majoring in biology. I chose this topic because I love listening to music, and I don't believe I could go a day without it. I also enjoy flowers and all types of plants, as I believe they add so much life to the world around us. And also, one of my favorite colors is purple, hence why I chose African violets as my type of plant. Since my presentation is dealing with sound, we first need to know what sound is. Sound is defined as the oscillation of transmitted waves that can be transmitted through solids, liquids, and gases which also have the potential to crash into plant cells if the intensity level goes beyond a level that the plant cell is comfortable with. Sound waves come in various forms, two of those being positive and negative. Positive is defined as emotionally and spiritually uplifting sounds, while negative is known to stimulate the negative emotions. They also have different variations, such as soft, medium, and loud, as seen in the image above. And plants are able to receive these sound waves through the protoplasm, which is the living part of the cell. Sound frequency is the rate at which sound waves travel, and they come in numerous types of forms, such as low, middle, high, and ultrasonic. Sound frequency can also stimulate leaf stomata, which are microscopic pores found on the bottom of leaves. When stimulated, they can increase the amount of light energy and water that gets into the plant, which hence increases the growth of the plant. Various studies have tried to identify plant preference. For example, a study done in 2015 by Chowdhury and Gupta tested specific frequencies on marigolds and found that at specific frequencies, marigolds grow a lot better. Sound also gives off sound vibrations, which is what plants use to sense their surroundings. Plants are able to receive these vibrations through special membranes that contain mechanoreceptors in the plant cell membranes. Sound vibrations are beneficial as they help plants locate nutrients and also protect themselves from invading insects. For example, a study done in 2014 by Mitra found that rock cress is able to identify caterpillar vibrations from other vibrations in order to release more toxins, which discourage the caterpillar from chewing on the rock cress. Plants also use buzz pollination, which is where they use the vibrations given off by bees to stimulate pollen release. This all led me to my question of interest: do different types of music affect the growth of African violets? I began my experiment by collecting my materials, which were 16 4-inch pots, 2 bags of African violet potting soil, and 2 bags of African violet seeds. I then divided those 16 pots into 4 groups: a control group, rock group, nature group, and instrumental group. The watering method I used for this test is called the finger test, which is where you use the dryness to determine on whether or not you need to water the plants. After that, I planted the seeds 1/2 inch deep within each pot, and then watered them with 52 milliliters of water, and then covered them with a pot lid so they could begin their germination process. Once the germination process began, I then started exposing them to their treatment. For example, I would bring the rock group into a silent room and expose them to rock music. I did this for about 3 weeks, which is how long the germination process lasted. And then once the germination process ended, I then measured the height of all sprouts in the pots, and then took an average of those heights, and then reported those into a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. However, due to a confounding variable, aka my German Shepherd, which destroyed my instrumental group, I was only able to record data for my control, rock, and nature group. Here is a table of my data. My descriptive statistics are X bar and standard deviation. X bar is the average of data values, while standard deviation is the variability within the data set. Now, as you can see, the mean for the nature group is higher than all the rest, which would lead you to believe that nature performed better than all the other groups. Since I'm looking at 3 averages and comparing them, I'll be using an ANOVA test, which stands for Analysis of Variance. I met all the conditions for this test except for one, which was the randomization condition, which is where you randomly assign treatments to your subjects. Here is a graph of my data, and as you can see, the green line, which is the nature group, is higher than all the rest, which would further lead you to believe that nature performed better than all the other groups. This all led to the formulation of my hypotheses. My null hypothesis is that the means of each group are unequal, which signifies that music did not have an impact on the growth of African violence. And then my alternative hypothesis, which is what I'm trying to prove, is that the means of each group are unequal, which means that music did have an impact on the growth of African violence. And once I calculated my test, I had a test statistic of 0.7, which is the variability within my averages. I then had a p-value of 0.52, which means that if the null hypothesis is true, I would have a 52% chance of getting these exact same results by random chance alone. And since I had such a high p-value, I failed to reject the null hypothesis, meaning that I was unable to prove that let me rephrase, meaning that music did not have a significant impact on the growth of African violence. And since I did fail to reject the null hypothesis and wasn't able to identify that African violence that music had a significant impact on African violence, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't respond to music. It just may mean that they don't respond significantly to rock or nature. This could lead you to believe that they may have a preference on what they like to listen to. And also, future studies should look at testing different types of plants, specifically vegetables, fruits, or medicinal plants, and they should also broaden the range of sounds and frequencies they use on those plants. And also, if more studies can find that sound improves the growth of plants, they should use this instead of fertilizers, as fertilizers often contain dangerous chemicals which harm the environment more than they do good. I had a few limitations for my study. My first one being my small sample size. In ideal experiments, you'd want to have a sample size of 30 or more. And my second limitation is the amount of space I had. In ideal experiments, as I said, you would want to have a sample size of 30 or more, and you would need a big enough space to host that amount of plants, which I did not have. And then my third limitation is that I failed to randomize my experiment, which, as I said before, in ideal experiments, you would want to randomize your treatments, so that way you can reduce the amount of confounding variables you would have, unless you have a dog like me. And then my last limitation is exposure time, which in ideal experiments, you would want to expose your subjects to an ample amount of time for your treatment to increase the accuracy of your results. And then I would like to give a special shout out to my math advisors, Ms. Harrell and Ms. Whitaker, for helping me with the math. I would also like to thank Ms. Spencer for guiding me in this process. And last but not least, I would like to thank the judges and audience for being here and listening to me talk about flowers. Thank you again for your time and attention, and I will now be taking questions from the judges.
Ethan, how did you determine at what volume you would play the music?
I just estimated. I didn't want to play it too soft, so that way the plants could pick up on it. Because on my research, I did find that when you played it at a low volume, it didn't show much difference between the groups. So that's what I tried to variate it between soft and like loud.
I'll stick with theme music. How did you choose what genres of music to play?
So throughout all my research, I did find that rock, nature, classical, and indie music produced the better results. So I just went with rock and nature as an instrumental. However, I was not able to prove that one as what I wanted to go for.
I guess my question kind of deals with maybe the germination times. Why did you choose African violets?
So, as I said before, I did like the color purple, hence why I chose African violets. But also, I did go through a whole process of trying to pick out what flower I could grow in time to fit the schedule of the presentation in the entire project, which I found that African violets had the quickest germination process to where I could actually measure the sprouts in time.
With the rock music, how did you determine what kind of rock music it was?
Well, I did use my personal opinion in that choice, so I picked Kiss music because I like that. I like that band a lot, so that's what I chose for the rock music.
Okay. So you basically started with the plants as seeds.
Yes.
Do you think it would make a difference if they'd been already germinated, or that had any impact on if they would grow or not?
I do think that could have made a difference, but in my research, none of my research didn't really say about that, but I do think that could have made a difference within my results.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jacob. There it goes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Foley, and I did my presentation on main factors of consumer perception of products. So a little bit about me. I am a senior and I attend Magna Vista High School. After I graduate from Magna Vista, I plan to attend Virginia Tech, where I will study mechanical engineering. So I chose this topic because I like to save money, and I'm pretty sure all of you do as well. And I know that other people, or most people, have expenses such as bills, mortgages, and insurance to pay. I feel like it's just a good idea for people to find out what influences their perception on products and other consumer goods. So brand awe. Brand awe is the emotional connection that people usually feel towards products. And this can be influenced by previous brand knowledge, which brand knowledge, if you know more about a product, you're more familiar with it. And if you're more familiar with it, you tend to be more biased towards it and choose it and purchase it more. And innovation. If a product is innovative, it's usually the first of its kind, and it garners attention, so more people attracted to it means that it gets more purchases. And then marketing. If a product is marketed correctly, then you should see it almost everywhere in your everyday life, and since it's marketed more, you see it more, you're more familiar with it, that means you're more inclined to trust it and buy it. And product bundling. So if products are bundled correctly, that will increase the willingness to pay, since people are getting more for the price of one. And then the purchase intent also increases with this because, again, you're getting more than one product for the same amount of money, so they're more likely or inclined to buy it. Then specifically how they're bundled will drastically determine this. So according to a study by Huang, they found that if a secondary product is bundled with a much more expensive primary product, the consumers are much more inclined to pay more than if the products are both the same price. Product quality. So if consumers don't know much about a product, they generally rely on other factors such as the quality to determine how much they are willing to pay for a product and if they are willing to buy it. And another reason is safety reasons. If a product is safe, that usually means the quality is of good standard, and if it is safe, people will tend to trust the product more, so that leads to more purchases of the product. Then product name. Usually a fanciful name of a product generates the feeling of higher quality with it, and a fanciful name is basically something that's simple and can be multiple things. An example of this could be like the technology company Apple. That is a name that you think of a technology company, but it also mean a fruit that you eat. And price reduction. So according to a study by Huang, they found that over a 3-week study that handing out coupons to a specific store, the purchase rate increased by around 50%. After that 3-week period, they did another study a week after, found that the purchase rate was still increased by around 30%. And the willingness to pay usually increases with price reduction because people are getting the same product for a much cheaper price. And income level. So, not consumers, but corporations usually make products much cheaper than they would normally do to appeal to a much wider audience, specifically the lower income families that can't afford goods. And spending. So according to a study by Tron, they found that higher income families tend to spend roughly around 30 to 50% more of their income on products or goods. And then according to the US Census, our poverty levels in Martinsville and Henry County are around 24%, so that means we would most likely appeal to the lower income side of the marketing industry. Now this then leads me to my research question. Is price the biggest purchasing factor? So to prepare for my survey, I created a Google form, which had a consent portion, which was mandatory for them to go into and access the actual questions of the survey. And then I recruited participants through the Patrick and Henry welding program. So for my procedure, I had them scan the QR code as soon as they walked into a classroom. And then they then they were introduced to the consent form, which again was mandatory for them to access the actual survey portion. Then once they accessed the survey portion, they were met with two images, one of a name brand Lay's potato chips, which were around $5, and a Great Value brand, which was around $2. But then there was another survey or a different sample I did with the same voting people, where the higher price one was lower to see that it changed the outcome of it. And they answered questions based off of either bundling, price, quality, or name was their main purchasing factors. So for data collection, since I didn't use Google Forms to create the data, I did collect it there. And since I use Google Forms, it automatically stores it, so I can just go there, get it for later. My hypothesis, my null hypothesis is that the factors that affect consumer perception are equal. And my alternate hypothesis is the factors that affect consumer perception are not equal. And I ran this at an alpha level of 0.05 and a confidence interval of 95%, which means I have 95% confident in our results and that they are 95% accurate. And these are the observed versus expected counts of my first sample, which is the normal price. And if you look at it, you can see that the orange is my observed counts, which are the actual responses of the individuals that participated in my survey. And the orange is the expected counts, which, as you can see, they are all equal because it runs on a distribution that they are all equal. So that means that they all account for 25% of my total population or sample size. And then if you look to the right of that, you can see the factors and the contributions. The contributions represent how far the observed counts deviated from the expected counts. And then again, this is the observed versus expected counts of the altered price sample. And again, the orange are the expected, and they're all equal because they were ran against the distribution. They were all equal, 25% population or sample again. And if you look to the right again, you can see the factors and contributions. So for this, I ran a chi-squared goodness of fit test. And since I did this for both of them, I have normal price at a p-value of 0.0025. This represents the chance that my results have been obtained purely by luck. And I have a chi-squared test statistic of 14.35. This just represents the deviation between observed counts and expected counts. So the higher this number is, the more my observed counts deviate from my expected counts. And then for the altered prices, I have a p-value of 0.0084 and a chi-squared test statistic of 11.73. So since my p-values were both lower than the alpha level of 0.05, I reject my null hypothesis that all factors are equally as influential, and I have sufficient evidence to prove that all the factors are not equally as influential. Now, so for the main factor, if you could remember my contributions, based on that in my observed counts, for my observed counts, I had price as main one, which was around 13 for my normal prices and 16 for my altered prices. And then for the contributions, the price was still had the biggest deviation. So that means that price is the most substantial factor and it's the most important. Then our results or our research can just help corporations target a more specific or just a wider audience based on what they're trying to sell. And I did have some limitations with this study. One being, I did have a relatively small sample size, around 30 participants per survey or per testing group, and you generally want much more than that to get an accurate representation of the population. Participant age, since this was done on a college campus, the age was relatively young, so that could skew the data. And the location. I did do this in the Henry County Martinsburg area, and as mentioned before, we do have a poverty level of around 24%, so that could drastically influence my data choices or my results. And the product type, I did do this on a perishable good, so doing this on a non-perishable item such as tools or search tools, cars, and other goods like that could drastically change the outcome as well. I want to give a special thanks to Ms. Whitaker and Ms. Harrell for helping me with the math portion of my project, and I want to thank Ms. Mitchell for just helping me out organize this and figure out how to do all the research involved with this. And I want to give another thanks to the audience and to the judges that were here today to listen to me do my presentation. I'll now be taking questions.
Jacob, you mentioned using price alteration. How significant was the change in the price?
For that, I lowered it around $2 to where there was still a difference in about $1, but they're still close or significantly close together.
Excuse me. You were talking about your sample size and it was small and it was, not back with our welding students. In perfect world, if you were to redo this tomorrow, where would you gather participants? What type of sample? What kind of ages would you look for?
Well, I would prefer ages that would range from, I would just say maybe 18 because that is like the cutoff age for consent form. So 18 upward would be a good age range, and preferably like somewhere more populated, so a much bigger city or a town that has like much more people.
How might this sort of study help marketing teams?
So it could help them based on, this, like I found price is the most influential factor of like based on where I am right now. So if that's the most influential factor, then they can alter their goods and prices to better suit the surrounding area or just like the population of people in general.
You've already answered the question I was gonna ask. If you could redo your study, would you use a different product? Maybe, and do you think that would make a difference?
I think it would make a difference because with food, that tends to be more on the expensive side, like because name brands and like off brands. I know name brand food is like much more expensive than off brand food, even though they're almost virtually identical. Now, when it comes to manufacturers, let's say like an example, cars, like the lowest trim car versus the highest trim car, there are many differences in quality and standard. So that could definitely vary the results.
So I know you said that price was the biggest factor. I couldn't read the chart fast enough because English brand. But was brand like second to that, or was there any kind of like competition? Because I know like for some things it's like, well, this is cheaper, but it's also a Walmart brand and they're not so good cookies.
For the non-altered prices, I believe that the quality outdid the brand. But for the altered prices, brand and quality were exactly the same. So I guess if we lower the prices, then people's ideas or personal beliefs start to change on that spectrum because they choose what